In today's chaotic world, believers are turning to Denison Forum for real-time biblical clarity. This podcast, along with all our resources, exists to help you navigate the headlines with faith and confidence. But we can't do this alone. Your support makes this work possible. When you give your first monthly gift as a Denison Forum Frontline partner, you'll equip more believers with biblical insight, all while keeping these resources free for everyone who needs them. Visit supportdf.org to give your first monthly gift today. That's support, the letter D, the letter F.org, or just click the link in the show notes. Take your place on the front lines of faith with your first monthly gift today. Good day, and welcome to the Tuesday, March the 11th, 2025 edition of Denison Forum's Daily Article Podcast. I'm Chris Elkins, narrator. Today's daily article is written by our co-founder and CEO, Dr. Jim Denison. 5 years ago today, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic. Just reading that sentence brings back horrible memories for me, and I'm sure it does for you. Images of portable morgues, patients dying alone in isolation wards, people masking out of fear of everyone they meet. It seemed nearly everything was shut down, from restaurants and businesses to schools and churches. No one knew when a vaccine would arrive, assuming one could be developed. More than 7 million people are confirmed to have died from the virus, though some estimates suggest the pandemic has actually caused between 19 and 36 million deaths worldwide. But these numbers, as horrific as they are, don't begin to tell the whole story. According to New York Times columnist David Wallace Wells, we're living in the, quote, branch of history the pandemic created, one whose contours are only now coming into view. He writes, "We tell ourselves we've moved on and hardly talk about the disease or all the people who died or the way the trauma and tumult have transformed us. But COVID changed everything around us." End quote. Among the changes Wallace Wells lists, I found these especially relevant for today's article. It turned us into hyper-individualists. In response to a tragedy so unthinkable and massive, we learned to process it through the lens of personal experience, and still do. As well, it inaugurated a new age of social Darwinism, as the survivors credit themselves and blame others for the crisis. Also, it broke our faith in public health, as debates erupted and continue over vaccines, masking, and the credibility of health officials. And it shattered our cities and disordered society. Homicides jumped nearly 30% in just a single year, homelessness surged, and drinking problems escalated, as did drug overdoses and traffic accident deaths. Many of these effects were temporary, but the politics of crime and disorder persist. Wallace Wells concludes, "Perhaps the biggest shock was realizing we still live in history and at the mercy of biology." The publication Foreign Policy agrees, warning that, quote, "the status quo won't save us from the next pandemic," end quote, and urging immediate steps to construct a global system for responding more effectively to future pandemic threats. While political leaders and public health officials will be on the front lines of the next pandemic, you and I are on the front lines of culture now. There is only one answer to our hyper-individualism, social Darwinism, broken faith in leaders, and shattered and disordered society. It is not a revival of religion, though Wallace Wells notes that the pandemic, quote, "may have halted the years-long decline in Christianity in America." The cultural Christianity that passes for religion in our secularized society is no match for biology and the disasters it produces in our fallen world. You may be surprised to hear me say this, but being more religious, going to more church services, reading more Bible texts, and saying more prayers is not the answer in itself, nor will the anodyne and customized spirituality of our day meet the moment. Instead, we need what humans have always needed: Luke 24 tells us a group of women went to Jesus' tomb on the first day of the week, where we read in verses 1 through 3 that they were shocked to find it empty. Then in verse 5, two angels met them asking, "Why do you seek the living among the dead?" This is such a powerful question still today. We seek the living among the dead when we treat Jesus as anything or anyone other than our living Lord. When he is an idea, a theology, a model, or a movement, he is as dead as if he were Buddha or Muhammad. When we seek and encounter him as a living person, only then do we experience the strength, wisdom, and peace he alone can give us amid the crisis we face. The problem is that it's hard in our materialistic culture to seek that which must be known through faith rather than through experience. We understand cemeteries, not resurrections. We're comfortable with theology, but less with theo. But when we meet the living Lord for ourselves, as two men did later that first Easter Sunday, we hear in verse 27 of Luke 24 his word to us. We experience his presence in prayer and worship from verse 30. Then our eyes are opened and our hearts burn within us as we read in verses 31 and 32. And we are compelled to tell others what we've experienced as recorded in verses 33 through 35 so they can experience him as well as revealed in verses 36 through 49. And a religion about Jesus becomes a transforming relationship with him. This is a day to remember the millions who died from the pandemic and the multiplied millions who still grieve their loss. It is a day to pray for our leaders and public health officials in the assumption that more pandemics are in our future. And it is a day to seek a deeper, more intimate relationship with the living Lord Jesus than we have ever known. Why? Ephesians 3:20. He is able to do far more abundantly than we ask or think. 2 Corinthians 9 verse 8. He is able to make all grace abound to you so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times, you may abound in every good work. Hebrews 2 verse 18. He is able to help those who are being tempted. Hebrews 7:25. He is able to save to the uttermost those who draw near to God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them. And Jude 24, he is able to keep you from stumbling and to present you blameless before the presence of his glory with great joy. In short, as Paul testified in 2 Timothy 1 verse 12, he is able. Where would you say you are on your faith journey with him today? Note, I frequently write articles for our website on breaking news and current events. I invite you to visit our website daily for more content from me and our writing team. A link to the Denison Forum website is in every day's daily article episode notes. Listeners like you support Denison Forum's mission to deliver news discerned differently. As a ministry nonprofit, we are fully donor supported. To partner with us, please donate today using the donate link in our show notes.